Hi everyone, and welcome to B Corp B Fashion. Today with us we have Alice Siracusano, who's the proud mom and CEO of Lux Agency, which is a content marketing agency and B Corporation. So welcome, Alice.
Hi there. Hi guys. Thank you.
Alice, could you tell us a little bit more about what Lux Agency is actually doing and what is your business?
Of course. I am a former Google and Samsung employee, obsessed with data, stories, and connections between things seemingly distant. Today, I'm the CEO of Lutz. That is, as you already said, a content marketing agency and a B Corp, of course, with roots in journalism that specializes in stories centered around people. So I mixed the two, me and the company together.
That's definitely good. And could you tell us what is actually the vision and the mission of Lutz Agency? Let's say, what is the reason why you are working at Lutz Agency?
Of course, the purpose, let's say. The vision of my business, I think, lies in an analysis by the World Health Organization and International Labour Organization, published in 2021, that found that nearly 500 million people worked too much in 2016, and 750,000 people died from it. This is a clear sign of extractive capitalism, whose negative effects are felt first of all by people. Our mission in Lutz is to make sure that those who work with us, I mean employees, but also suppliers and clients, of course, are happy with what they're doing, free to express themselves, and perceive their job as a valuable part of their lives. We believe that by pursuing our mission every day, our employees themselves will become responsible for personal projects created around their personal interpretation of the company's vision. This is really, really important for us because from the perspective of Lutz employees, this results in concrete projects sponsored by the company, by Lutz, with both time and money too. And we keep going with this process until the employees may one day decide to own a part of the project in terms of equity capital and in terms of time management, of course. At that moment, you can see that a new company is born, divided in part between them and Lutz. So our vision and our mission are new companies out of old ones, so new big corporations out of old ones, and new visions out of original ones to improve our employees and Lutz satisfaction at work and at home too.
I think that you clearly stated that it's a different way of doing business, a different way of looking at the people that are working with you and not for you, and see, let's say, the long-term value that you can bring as a company to the entire set of people and stakeholders that are around you. And so my question is, how do you feel, why did you decide to become a B Corp, and why do you think that becoming a B Corp can help you in this process, in this journey?
We decided to become a B Corp near the end of 2019, I think. Then we obtained the certification at the start of 2020. We did it because we wanted a concrete proof of our mission, and we wanted to collaborate with other companies and people who want to change things like we do in order to be stronger together.
I really like that. So you said collaboration is the key. Definitely. Becoming a B Corp is a way to say you're part of a journey where you're not alone and there are many other companies that are on the same path, and it should be a co-evolution process. And that's why B Corp Fashion is actually here and why we created this community for sharing the experience from the other B Corps. And I want to ask you why, and let's say being a purpose-driven company affects daily your way of working. So how do you think you're working differently from other companies on a daily basis? Even giving a simple example of what you do.
I believe that since its foundation, the purpose of Lutz has been a B Corp one, because it has been to provide support to photographers and journalists around the world for creating and promoting reporting. This kind of information is based on the research for truth. It seeks to deeply connect people with what's happening in the world in order to stimulate meditation and also action. Indeed, our reporters document the stories of refugees, of social violence, of civil rights, of low-income individuals, underrepresented groups, people who strive and sacrifice to change things. So these projects need time to be developed, of course, and journalists spend months, even years, to gain the trust of the people portrayed in their picture. At the beginning, our sole business was to sell these stories to publishers, of course, around the world. Then, unfortunately, as of today, an agency cannot rely exclusively on the selling of this kind of product. As the publishers, unfortunately, unless in this type of investigation on slow news, you can say, and more on fast and ready-made news. Therefore, our business model had to change in order to keep Lutz alive. We decided not only to supply our to publishers, but also to corporations, and to offer them a kind of storytelling that is based on this journalistic approach we know so well. What today is called brand journalism, branded content, but more of brand journalism. This way we could keep following our purpose, yet for different clients. So to answer your question, our business model changed in order to follow our purpose.
I really like that. And I'm gonna use the word you said, which is slow communication compared to fast communication, slow news, fast news. I've always heard fast fashion, slow fashion, but even speaking about communication, the way you communicate should be slow or fast. And so I ask you to briefly explain me better what it means and what it's about.
The communication, you mean?
Slow and fast. So how can you say you invest in slow journalism versus fast journalism?
As I explained, the kind of stories that our reporters follow are slow ones in terms that because you have to gain trust of people you want to portray. Those stories need trust, and trust is something that is slow to gain. It's something that is much more about research and less about information. A type of storytelling that wanted you to be connected to the subjects. For instance, from a sustainability perspective, a way to have a more deep storytelling is to give a greater voice to the communities who benefit from the sustainable work of entities or of governments and business through an in-depth journalistic inquiries carried out over the appropriate amount of time. It is something that is really distant from greenwashing or from slogan. I wanted to give you this example because I think it clearly states which is the difference between slow communication approach, so investigating personal stories with an in-depth journalistic perspective, or fast communication approach, that is just to say, oh, okay, this entity is doing well with sustainability without giving details on it.
And that's, I think, is one of the core topics and the main problems that today companies that want to really change their way of doing business are finding, because they find they are doing a lot, but they find it difficult to communicate to people that are not expert in this field how they can understand all the work that there's behind. And then there's the easy communication, the slow communication that comes in to make all what's behind easier to understand, but that doesn't mean that it's well developed, the content behind. So it's extremely interesting. Absolutely. And I want to ask you how measurements and how all this process involves measurement and significant commitment to transparency, and what is the role of transparency in all that?
Like I said before, I have a background on big tech, so So I'm not at all scared of data. And neither are our employees. Transparency is an everyday challenge, of course, in Lutz, but for all of us. We train ourselves every single day to be more transparent with each other. And this process starts with the executives. So it starts with me. I always push myself to be as clear as possible with employees, suppliers, and clients in transmitting my expectations. I learned that gaps in expectations are often the origin of fear and frustration, and they don't help the organization in pursuing a unique and shared purpose. So this is how measurement impact our business in terms of a constant search for transparency.
And that's definitely good. What have been the most difficult challenges you have faced so far, speaking about traceability, transparency, but all what there's behind this slow communication and work?
Keep training myself, me, to be the most inclusive and the most authentic person that I can be. I know it may sound silly or okay, just be authentic, but it's not simple. And I think it's important also to convey this message. So as if we say to people, be authentic, people may think it's something that happens in a natural way. It is not. You need training on it, and to constantly look for new ways to stimulate our employees. It also needs training. Indeed, in Lutz, the executives, so me and my partner, act as facilitators of individual expressions, but also of group expression, using different tools from narration and sharing to space design and continuous workshops and experiments with arts and cultures. And it's both challenging and beautiful to keep up with this rhythm and to stay creative and innovative and not to give up in the face of constant change. Like our B Corp claim states, be the change.
I'm curious. I want to know, what do you mean by saying space design? How the space design can support you in being more authentic as a person?
It definitely can influence people. Spaces can influence people, and the way spaces are designed. It may also create difficulties in creative sharing. In some way, spaces are also mental spaces, not only physical spaces. These days, we are going to change our office, and we are designing the spaces all together, starting from our personal stories. Yeah, the designers to whom we commissioned the design of the new office asked us for a vision of what the office could be, and we answered back with our personal stories. So each of us, we are in 18 in Lutz, each of us provides the designers with our stories since we were children. So which were our dreams and how we have become adults. The reason is that we wanted spaces perfectly designed for our dreams. So I don't know, I would expect having in some rooms some objects related to what were our dreams when we were children. So I don't know, a small airplane because one of us dreamt to become a pilot, or I don't know, some space to have our creative aspiration fixed. So some blank spaces to be covered by our drawings, for instance. Some of us wanted to become artists.
I love that.
So it's kind of a shared design, open innovation and shared design that start from our personal stories.
It's amazing because we all think about how we can understand what we want to do and try to pursue our dreams while at work. You are surrounded by your dreams. So it's a way to really fully immerse in your dream life. And I really want to see the final output. So one day we have B Corp Fashion, we're going to share, we can create one session just speaking about how you can design your space for a purpose-driven company.
Of course, and also share with you the name of the project, because we figured out that it's so important to have also a name for it that is different from Lutz, because it's going to be a different project itself, the office. And I don't want to spoiler anything, but I can say that the name is a mix of different concepts. One is lab in terms of laboratory, so experimentation. And the second one is habitat, because it's going to be an habitat much more than an office. And hub also, because it's going to be a point where different competencies, but also different energies will convey together.
I really like that. And now I want to totally move the conversation to a different point, which actually is, we usually ask the companies, the fashion companies, to say, how do they see the changes in the fashion industry and how do you think they are working in order to become, let's say, the dream company they wish to become when they decided to be a B Corp. I want to ask you, as you're a communication agency, how do you see that from an external point of view? So how do you think the communication is changing in the industry, and how do you think that also becoming a B Corp can support companies to better communicate themselves?
I'll answer by saying which changes I would like to see in the communication industry and why. As a communication agencies, we can help contribute to a healthier advertising and communication ecosystem. As I said, we are journalists, but we also are advertisers. So this is the reason why I'm mentioning advertising and communication ecosystem. This is especially important today. Unfortunately, these days are covered by images and information about war. And war intensifies the impulse to share powerful images. But it leaves us users with uncomfortable choices and difficulties in the social media wilderness. We have images of war, then we have something about lifestyle, our friend going to a journey. So it may happen also to see dead civilians or soldiers lying next to an advertising banner promoting the next perfume by a luxury firm or the new collection of a fashion designer. So many users don't have enough time to digest those images. I believe me too. I don't have enough time. Sometimes I see my feed on Instagram and I say, okay, let's close it because it's too much. It's too confusing and I cannot digest dead people next to jewelry brand. Okay, so we are overwhelmed by the amount of information with the advertising mixed with news. This is something that happens every single day, but during war time it intensifies and it's harder to digest. So it is important to give people the right time to meditate on images and on facts, especially when we talk about wars, about ethical and political issues. We, as advertising and marketing and communication agencies, also have the duty, I think, to explain to our clients what to communicate and when it's the right time. And maybe some other time you just don't have to communicate. Unfortunately, as of today, this happens too rarely. I would would like to see more agencies taking this stand. This is a change I do want to see in the next days, I hope, months, years. And I would like to see more agencies also taking a stand toward what are good communication practices that could really change things, and what are merely slogans or another way to suggest the use of our credit card that is meaningless in these days.
That's a totally powerful message that sometimes I never thought about it. You can have a really effective communication, which is actually not communicating. We think that we always have, especially nowadays in our society that is sharing everything, we have the power to share whatever we do at any moment of our day. Actually having the power to say, I am communicating without communicating. That's something extremely interesting that maybe we're going to see in the future, or maybe not, because what I see is also that communication is somehow standardized. There is a kind of way of communicating, and you can get to the audience only if you communicate in that way. That's also the concept you were saying about slogans. That's short, a sentence that fixes to your mind, you're going to remember it forever. Or the music that really is effective, but you're going to only remember the music, and then the music will associate to the brand image that you remember.
Symbol, but it's not a message.
And what would you say are 3 best practices in communication and 3 worst practices, you somehow started just mentioning it, that are really best for effective communication? Not only effective, I want to say worthy communication, meaningful communication.
Talking about B Corps, because we are B Corps, and we of course want this movement to be greater and greater. In terms of being a B Corp and communicating, I think one best practice is to engage employees in communication. Before starting to communicate externally about sustainability, about what could be good practices, then you can start by internal communication, by engaging employees. Also in the B Corp impact assessment, for instance. From our perspective, engaging employees in the measurement of impact is a good thing to do, because they then are more aware of the impact that they are making. The B Corp impact assessment is a long assessment, a process.
We all know.
We all know a process that grades companies using point system that measures 5 key areas, just to remember it, that are governance, workers, environments, and customers, and community. The process also highlights companies' weaknesses, of course, offering a roadmap to positive business practice. So including your employees in this process is a sort of group therapy, let's say, that helps strengthen the team by identifying also possible improvements, because we can have an impact and we can have a better impact only if we are aware of it. So to grow together, both as individuals and as a company, I think you have to engage your employee, first of all, in the concept of B Corp assessment itself, before then starting to communicating externally. Then the second best practice I want to share is about the B Corp philosophy explained to potential clients. I think it's important, starting from employees, then going outside and outside and outside. In the middle, there are suppliers and clients, and then the clients of our clients, that are the audience to whom we tailor our messages. But before coming there are the clients and suppliers. So explaining the B Corp philosophy to them is important, because it's a way to understand also if they are compatible with your ethical standards or not, and to quickly decide whether or not to work work with them. If they, let's say, pass the selection because they agree with the B Corp philosophy, then your relationship will surely be more authentic and fulfilling. But it's important to share your values at the beginning of the relationship. Again, this may sound simple or something that is, okay, of course you have to share your values. Yes, but then most of us tend not to share the values at the beginning of the relationship because it may cause troubles. Because maybe the person in front of you may say, okay, I don't agree with the fact that your employees have to stop working after 8 hours. I want to have the chance to call your colleagues also at, 8 p.m. And I say, no, okay. So I understand that company cannot be a client, cannot be a partner. So the third one is about a community that is larger than the client's one. And these are students. It happens that I am the testimonial of the B Corp philosophy in some classes during some lessons in some universities. And I think teach students about the B Corp philosophy is important to keep the mission alive, first of all, because they are young, and to have the chance to be also proud of it, because every time I talk to students about the B Corp story and why we decided to become one, I'm thrilled by the reactions and also about their enthusiasm and positive attitude toward the future. That is something that we really, really need in these days. About the future in general and about the future of business and of capitalism. It's an injection of optimism, so I suggest all of you to spread the philosophy and to communicate the philosophy also among them.
I really like the fact that when you speak about communication, you start always saying internal communication first and external communication secondly. And I think that's the major problem that is out there in the industry, because if you communicate something externally which is not aligned with the people within the organization and the value chain that you have behind, then you can risk really to get into greenwashing, because you're saying something that only you believe as top management, as communication office, which is not aligned with actually what is effective behind the organization. And that's something extremely, I think, difficult to work on if you have a big business and if we think about the fashion industry with very fragmented supply chains, because there are so many actors, so many players, that communicating is so hard internally. No way more difficult to communicate internally than externally. So that's something where I think everyone has to work on, and I'm gonna work on that as well.
If you want to, we can help you maybe in some ways,
especially starting with the B impact assessment, using the B impact assessment as a tool to communicate internally first of all, rather than communicating externally, because sometimes we think that this is sustainability is all about one team, one few people in a company, but actually it's about communication. It's really linked to how you communicate first and then how you do what you have communicated and what you have shared. And actually the B impact assessment is something that involves everyone in the company, so it should be done with a sharing approach actually.
And it's worth of it also because as you said, it's a long assessment. It's difficult to go through it. So if you have allies in filling the assessment, it's also a kind of a time management issue. You have some help, and you of course you go through it more easily. Regarding the things to avoid in terms of communication, I would avoid being, this is linked with the previous point, I would avoid being too generic in describing what sustainability means to you as a company. So this is about external communication. For example, saying, we are environmentally and socially concerned or active, without offering detailed stats and information to back this. This is really, really dangerous. It is dangerous, the notion of sustainability itself, because it has help feed human cognition biases about sustainability and sustainable behavior, like the bias toward the status quo rather than change. So things are like this, I cannot change them. Okay, this is a bias fed by a kind of communication that is too generic. Secondly, it may suggest greenwashing, as you said. So slogans are not substitute for concrete sustainable policies. This is the first thing I would avoid becoming a B Corp. I learned to avoid it. Then the second one, I would avoid assuming people know what a B Corp is. Every people, but first of all, your clients, the people to whom you used to speak, also through your communication. More and more companies have signed up for the B Corp impact assessment, of course. Yet it is important to spread awareness and to explain what it means. It happens that I speak with also executives of big companies and I ask, do you know what a B Corp is? And they say, so it's important.
That's dangerous, actually.
That's dangerous. Of course, the awareness is growing and it means that we are doing a great work, a great job, but it's important to feed the concept of B Corp. Thirdly, I would avoid assuming people know what a B certification is, because before being a B Corp, you have to obtain a B certification. And again, it does not help the B Corp mission, which is to be different and to counter distrust in social and environmental guidance. So many certifications claim to, let's say, defend high social standards and environmental standards, but few hold the companies legally accountable for them. B Corps are required to embed stakeholder governance into their articles of association, so legally committing themselves to making decisions through the lens profit, of course, but of people and of the planet. It's something that is legally accountable. So these are the three communication practices that I would avoid in order to keep the movement alive and strong.
I think everything was really useful, and I hope also the other B Corps will find that really helpful for what they are doing, for sharing what they're doing internally, externally, and progressing, let's say, towards the goal. So thank you, Alice. I really liked having this conversation with you.
Thank you. I would like to finish with a quote that I found yesterday when I studied for this interview. And the quote is from Alden Wicker, that maybe you know. It's an award-winning journalist and sustainable fashion expert. And she said in 2007, I'm going to read it. Globally, we are projected to spend 9.3 billion in 2017 on green cleaning products. If we had directed even a third of that pot of money toward lobbying our governments and to ban the toxic chemicals we are so afraid of, we might have made a lot more progress by now. I know it's hard, but I think it's worth of meaning. It's worth telling.
It's like saying we all need to collaborate and work on the same goals rather than just using the old way of doing business and continuing on this purpose. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you, Martina. It was a pleasure for me.